We've got some really relevant information that we're going to talk about. Most of you, I think, were just in the past panel or just the past session, and we talked a little bit about cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is a huge topic nowadays. I mean, it's at the top of every C-level conversation you can think of. You see cyber is in the news, and it's affecting our industry in a huge way. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity. I want to make this an informal, formal session. So we're going to probably ask you guys to get involved a little bit. We're going to have a bit of a fireside chat with these two gentlemen. And before we get started, I want you guys to direct your attention to this video.
Cyber attacks are surging in our industry, targeting commercial and industrial facilities more than ever. OT deployments have emerged as a key component in our cybersecurity landscape, exposing critical infrastructure to today's sophisticated cyber criminals. Government agencies are looking for industry leaders to take more aggressive actions to mitigate the threats capable of causing wide-scale havoc. But there is a glaring absence of collaboration among the individuals involved in the design and construction of smart buildings. There must be a more dedicated effort to unify cybersecurity standards across the industry. There must be a more proactive approach for developing streamlined processes and universally adopted best practices. There must be cyber harmony. Cyber harmony is a call to action for fostering a more collaborative relationship among the various individuals and organizations responsible for the cybersecurity infrastructure of smart buildings. Exploring the cyber harmony model unveils a spectrum of potential project stakeholders integral to an OT deployment. Promoting cyber harmony will encourage communication across this spectrum, using the collective knowledge of each role to reveal vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. Ultimately, by practicing cyber harmony, these roles will become more clearly defined, and the pathways to stronger cybersecurity will be easier to navigate.
So by a show of hands, how many of you have heard the term cyber harmony? Okay, we've got a couple out there. You guys have heard it. So what cyber harmony is exactly what the video stated. It's a call to action to our entire ecosystem, right? I think I mentioned probably in the last session and maybe yesterday, it was mentioned that I'm the executive director for the Real Estate Cyber Consortium that's made up of a lot of really, really big end users. Everyone from CBRE to Wells Fargo. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And I think you guys saw yesterday Jim Young talk a little bit about it. And they are really, really concerned with the IT and OT marriage when it comes to cyber policies, cyber best practices, and so forth, and getting everyone on the same page. So when you look at this, what we like to call the cyber harmony model, those are all the potential stakeholders that can be involved on any given project, right? And we all know that the ultimate stakeholder would be the end user or the owner. So what we've done is challenge the owners to develop what we like to call an owner's project requirements document, which is pretty much a design guideline for cyber in the OT space, right? So that's coming. A lot of owners are going to start using this document, passing it down to the consulting engineers, and it's going to end up in your lap if you do plan to spec work, right? It's going to start being embedded into the contract documents. So what we want to do today is talk a little bit about cybersecurity and how it affects two of the major stakeholders, the systems integrator at the bottom left and the operational technology manufacturer, right? So I've got Ed Merwin and Aaron Brondum. Ed is from Tridium, Aaron is from The View. Guys, thanks for joining us today. We're going to try to keep this pretty basic and pretty simple. We're going to give you guys an opportunity to talk about your products. But when you think, let's start with you, Aaron. When you think about cyber harmony and you look at this diagram, what does that say to you as far as our industry?
Well, it's good to see that we're talking about it. And it's very important all the way through what you do, especially as system integrators. If you think about your customers and what really differentiates you to those customers is you you ultimately become probably the biggest trusted OT vendor there, right? You tend to be doing a lot more than, say, like the card access vendor or maybe even the fire alarm provider. They tend to look at the SI, particularly around the HVAC control side, to be their trusted partner with it. And so, as you're growing your businesses and growing that trust, it's important that you stay upfront to what's happening on the cyber side, and it becomes part of your offering. Otherwise, you're just going to be another vendor that's throwing in some controls and moving on to the next project when you're really after that long-term relationship.
Yeah. How about you, Ed?
Well, first of all, you've mapped it out. We've all been talking about individually, how do I secure a J's? How do I secure a VAV controller or a server, that sort of thing. But this is a really nice process because any one of these where it breaks, we're all going to get in trouble, right? And then it's going from the design all the way, you have the CX agent, but I think there's going to be more agents that are going to be out there. They're going to be cyber agents, right, that are commissioned right alongside the balancer, right, those types of things. So I really think you've come a long way, specifically with your leadership, right? I think pulling the consortium and the people together, including not only the real estate owners, but all the manufacturers and the tool set developers. I think this is really good for people to understand how complex it really is, and that each one of these circles you have there, each one of them has got a certain responsibility, but everybody needs to know what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, so let me stay with you, Ed. So what is Tridium doing internally to make sure that you guys are keeping up when it comes to cyber?
Well, first of all, Stephen Halke alluded to it, our single largest R&D line item is cybersecurity. Okay, so the dollars we spend, that's one of the biggest chunks, is cyber. So we not only do that, we spend a lot of money internally training our people and hiring the best people, but also putting in the processes in place to do our own internal testing. So before something goes out the door, it has to go through a tremendous amount of processes. We have internal testing, then we have corporate testing, right? We're a subsidiary of Honeywell. So the Honeywell's corporate security team looks at it after we look at it. Then we send it out to third-party testers to take a look at it. Then we have some of our partners who we work with, major corporations in America, that they beta test. When they're doing their beta testing, they're looking at the cyber aspect of it. So everything we do is to make sure when it goes out the door, we think it's the best it can be. And it's by default. If you notice, everybody says, boy, it's hard to be in the cyber business now. Yeah, because we made it by default. It used to be we sent it out where you had to add a lot of cyber hardness to it. Now, you basically, you can back that off if you want to, but in most cases, we don't even let you back off things like strong passwords and things of that sort. So it's built in by default. Other technologies like something called secure boot. We were talking about the old RS-45 controllers. So none of that's encrypted, right? And when controllers boot up, that's a chance when you can start injecting cyber problems. So we use a secure boot technology where only the controller itself at the chip level looks to make sure it's booting up the proper software. So those are the kind of things we're doing day to day, and we'll continue to evolve. And then working with partners who test our software as well, right? We have a lot of third parties, including a lot of government agencies that check our stuff out on a regular basis. So it's a major investment for us.
So all the systems integrators who are out there using Niagara, what you just heard Ed say are some of the things that you need to retain so that you can regurgitate this to an IT department if you're talking to them and they're asking you about your product. So when you see these RFPs come out or these specifications come out and you see cyber embedded into a specification and you had never said it before, these are some of the things that you're going to have to familiarize yourself with and be able to talk to. So for you, Aaron, what type of features you think should be considered when you're looking at a BMS product from a cyber secure point of view, right? So when you're looking and you're selecting your products and you know you're going to be challenged with a secure design, what are some of the features that the systems integrator should be looking at?
You really have to go with your trusted partners like at Tridium and Honeywell and Johnson. Obviously, they're developing the products, and cybersecurity is a big piece of what they're doing, right? But there's still an issue, right? They're just a piece. They're just a piece of the puzzle. And so it's ultimately, how are you being cyber secure? It's where's the internet coming in and connecting to the building? And what are you doing in between the internet and the products that they're providing, right? They're not providing cyber secure solutions for you. They're providing a cyber secure product or a device, right? Whereas you as the system integrator really need to take a holistic approach and look at what's the middle piece, right? We've got all these spokes coming off, but what's the middle that's tying it together? And that's where our solution comes in, is we've designed an OT cybersecurity platform designed specifically for OT and system integrators that solves all of this.
Right. So let me ask you this. So should systems integrators really concern themselves with cybersecurity? Because at the end of the day, most integrators have been under the impression that cybersecurity is the owner's responsibility. Like, how should they change their train of thought when it comes to cyber?
Like I said before, you need to be a partner with the owner, but you also have to protect your own business. I did find it was interesting today because we have all the major brands here. Everybody talked about cybersecurity, but nobody said why they're talking about it.
Right.
Ransomware is happening. Every single one of these vendors has been ransomwared.
Yep.
You had Heinz on the stage, right? They didn't mention ransomware. We've got 1,500 buildings, or 15,000 buildings. I guarantee you they've been ransomwared. Nobody's talking about it. And I'm sure there's system integrators here that have been part of ransomware attacks as well, right? But what's happening, every time something comes up, you're now a target, right? And sorry the pun, but we all can go back to Tridium and Target, and it had nothing to do with Tridium. It had to do with the vendor. But it was a tarnish on their name, and it became a hurdle. I was an SI. I was selling Tridium, so I had to talk to it and explain, no, it wasn't Tridium's fault. But once your name gets associated with it, it can be detrimental to your business. And those building owners, as soon as the first attack happens, and you're the SI, you might not have had anything to do with it, but if your name's associated with it, you're off their list, right? So you have to protect your business, but also you need to help protect and inform those building owners as well.
So let me ask Ed. So what kind of organizations is Tridium working with to just make sure that the products that you're putting out there, right, you're following the best practices industry-wide, right?
Yeah. First of all, we work with all the people we work with. We work with View, we work with Honeywell, we work with Johnson, and we work as a team, right? So our cyber engineers are working with their cyber engineers, and we're discussing issues. We're talking about that all the time. We also work with government agencies, okay, and some of them like CISA and ICERT. There's many of them out there. There's a whole the payment card industry is another group. If you have a credit card that you run in a Wawa convenience store, well, guess what? We had to follow we had to work with Wawa to work with that industry to make sure that, because there's a Jace on the same network as a credit card machine, we had to make sure that we tested against that. Could somebody go into the Jace and affect the credit card and vice versa? So, and we work with the federal government, the Department of Defense. Okay, they have something called the Risk Management Framework. So we work with them on a regular basis. We actually have to become certified by those people so that we can have our software and not just our hardware, the JSON, but our software has to be able to operate in the government agency, people like the GSA. And more, that takes a lot of time to be able to do that. And that's with every rev. Okay, so we have to make sure that, that process is very important to make sure that when it goes out, that it goes on a military base, that the Department of Defense has approved that, or even the So it's a lot of government agencies, but there's a lot of third parties, a lot of our owners, and there's people here, major car manufacturers and major banks. We're on many banking networks, and each one of those has their own process. I know that a lot of our customers have their own internal processes, whether they do their own internal testing, not just of JACEs and web supervisors, but they're testing VAV controllers, right? They're testing actuators to see if somebody can inject something in there. And one of my main concerns is, while we're talking about keeping, the twisted pair that's out there, that's unencrypted danger. And sooner or later, if you get on an MSTP network, you can shut a chiller down or a generator down, and guess what? That's connected to a data center. So I think we have to look at, and Aaron's really good at helping the industry understand that. This is a holistic solution problem. It's not a piece of equipment problem.
Yeah, and and what I'm hearing, and when I look at this, diagram, I'm hearing collaboration. Right? And not just within our ecosystem, like when you look and you see the building owners, end users, commissioning agents, general contractors, and so forth. Aaron, how important do you think collaboration is for systems integrators, for them to think about collaboration when it comes to the engineers, the end users, their IT department, the manufacturers who support the products that they purchase?
Yeah, it's critical. It's your business, right? I mean, the best system integrators are not the ones that are in the bid spec world. They're the partners of the building owners.
Absolutely.
Right? And you're that trusted source especially when it comes to the OT side. You're there more frequent. It's critical, and but it's also an opportunity for you too. It's a huge opportunity to generate new types of revenue based on these security offerings that are available to you. And it's also, and Mark Peacock alluded to it, is a more managed service, right? We all know this SI world. I come from the SI world. We all like to talk about construction. We're in the warranty phase, but where are we making the biggest margins? Everybody's making their biggest margins on service. They tend to not talk about it a lot, but that's it. And now you can enrich your service with ongoing cyber products like what we provide to then even increase more reoccurring revenue for your business.
So let me stay with you, Aaron. So what type of consequences and what type of a risk would a systems integrator be assuming this day and age with IP technology and where cybersecurity is today if they just neglect cyber in their designs and some of the projects that they're proposing to for their negotiated work, we'll call it?
Yeah, you're rolling the dice. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. You're going to get hit. And, we all like to think we're in a big industry, but we're not. I mean, I met this guy probably 25 years ago and run into him every couple of years, I've changed my jobs quite a bit. He's still at the same place, but, you're in your communities. You're in Dallas, for example. Everybody knows who the system integrators are, right? And as soon as you trip up and the other guy hears about it, guess what they're talking about next time they go meet with their customers? They're going to talk about how you got hacked and how they're protecting the building owner and have their best interest in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I want to do is make sure that we talk to you guys about some tools that are out there, right? Your systems integrators, you're interested in how can you help me as a manufacturer push out products that are cyber secure and coach me up on those products so I know how to sell them. Let's get into your slides, guys. I know I saw a couple real interesting slides here. I'm going to go with you, Ed, first. I know you got a couple slides there, and let's talk about some of the things that Tridium are doing in specific.
Well, we kind of covered this. It's secure by default, right? And like I said, it used to be people said, oh man, you send this JACE out. When a JACE comes out nowadays, you have to change the password. And there's so many devices out there that still use, the factory defaults. Admin, right? And we learned that a long time ago. We had to change it, and we caught heck from the community about it, but we had to do it because it was the right thing to do. You have to change the password. There's a law in California now that you cannot send a device into the state of California with a default password that can't be changed on startup. So people understand that now. That's how it's going. So the whole idea is that, at commissioning, we have to change default passwords. We make things much stronger now. Like you said, we're going to force you to use strong passwords and the best rules. So I think, we're trying to do the best we can, and keeping up, as you brought up, with the ransomware attacks. I know there was an old building automation system, 30 years old, and guess what? They got hit by ransomware. It was a school district. $1 million later, okay, they fixed the problem. So don't think that just they thought they were probably using some reasonable cybersecurity, but again, there's just not enough you can do. And the other issue is, I feel that a lot of times it's the credentials that leak out, right? So two-factor authentication, doing more and more things that we can do to support that is what we're trying to do to keep up with it. But like I said, nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to get hit at some point. Some of the best, the Ascension Healthcare is really scary. That's going on right now. That hospital, not only the data that's out there, but people can't get treated quickly. They can't get surgery scheduled quickly because of that. That's really scary. So, you want me to go to the next one there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's all about resources and training as well. Okay, so one thing we've done is we spend a lot of time and effort in documenting what we do and training what we do. James Johnson is here, and is as part of, if you know about certificates in Niagara, it's probably from James Johnson, but we're actually going to start adding a lot more security-specific classes in time just to be able to do that, because it's getting to that point that you have to understand this. I got to ask a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
How many people have done a BACnet SC job in the room? Anybody? We got one. So one. Now, BACnet SC is trying to take BACnet to the next level. Yep. But then again, so that's a whole new learning curve for BACnet SC. So as part of, because of the cyber updates, we incorporated BACnet SC early. Is it the fix-all, be-all? Personally, I don't think so. I think there's other levels that have to be added well on top of that. So those are the types of things we're doing. So now we have support for BACnet SC. So I just want to point out that resources are very important, whatever the company they're coming from. Your team's going to have to take some time to understand that and use that. And I think all the manufacturers want to cooperate and make you better. I do believe there's a business proposition coming where it already is in some of the government and DoD jobs, where you're going to have a certain cybersecurity credentials to even do work on a government base and do building automation. So you might want to.
Yeah. So before we get into your slides, Aaron, both Tridium and View are part of the Real Estate Cyber Consortium, right? Which includes, like I said before, a ton of end users. So tell me just briefly why you guys felt it was necessary to join, right? I know part of it is to have your finger on the pulse of what the end users are thinking when it comes to cybersecurity.
I'll personally say we feel, first of all, all our major customers are there as well, and we felt this idea of this cyber harmony is it's got to be done by a team of people. It's not going to be done by one company. We have to learn from the best, and then we have to pass along these issues and share. I mean, like you said, everybody's had incidents, and they want to share how they solved it and what they're doing today to keep those maybe from happening again. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, Aaron, you guys were involved before I even got there.
Yeah. There's a good reason our biggest customer sits on the board with you.
Yeah, all right.
And so it's a large REIT. They've standardized on our solution across hundreds of buildings. If you are an SI in California or in the Northeast, your technicians are utilizing our platform to access and service the buildings remotely.
Yeah.
But there's other customers that are on it as well.
Yeah.
And it's also, just to help Greg out too, it's a very collaborative group. And it's so neat to see and hear all these CISOs and CTOs talk openly, share stories, but then they're also letting vendors come in as well. And it's a smaller group, but we all can hear and collaborate together to come up and try to solve this.
Yeah, and they're starting to be very, very particular as to which vendors join now. I'll just let you know that came from our executive committee. So it's a very tight-knit group, but they're very interested in the right vendors being involved in helping solve these cyber issues between IT and OT. And both of these companies are heavily involved with the Real Estate Cyber Consortium. So let's talk about your solution, Aaron.
Cool. Okay. Great. So I'm gonna spend a little bit about the company too. I'm gonna share some because you guys all know who Tridium is. You know who Honeywell is, and it's always great to hear about it. You might not understand who View is, and if you go to view.com, you're gonna get even further confused because it shows up as a glass company. And so I work in the Smart Building Cloud division of View. If you've been around Niagara for a while and you've been to Niagara Summits, you might remember an old company called Iodium. Anybody remember that company?
Iodium, yeah.
View bought Iodium 4 years ago, brought it in-house. They've done a lot of improvements to it. They were just using it internally. They still have the existing Iodium customer base out there that have been expanding on it. And this year, they're launching the product back to market, and we're in a partnership with Cochrane as a distributor for it. So just to clarify that. But like I said before, big picture with OT, ransomware threats are happening. But more importantly, and I'm going to touch on technical side too, is yesterday's collections of firewalls and VPNs don't meet the need anymore. I'm here to tell you, no more VPNs. No more VPNs. That's how people are getting in now. They're getting in through the shared passwords. They're using VPNs as ways to get in, and there's a new term for it, and I'll share that with you. And then the other part is there's also no time to modernize all the OT that's there, right? You can't go into an existing building, say, you're not secure, you need to replace everything that you have in your building, because they don't have the money to do it. So there's got to be a way and a path for them to modernize it, but then also secure it for the time being. So the new standard that you'll hear out there, this is not View's standard, this comes from Gartner, is called the Secure Access Service Edge. And I'll explain a little bit about that. So we call it a SASE. So what's in the Secure Access Service Edge? It's a secure web gateway. It's a cloud access security broker. It's next generation firewalls. And more importantly, it's zero trust network access. So you've heard the term zero trust out there quite a bit. There's a couple ways that it's used, but zero trust network access, think of it as your new remote access and your new VPN.
So is this a piece of hardware or hardware and software?
It can be hardware, but it's software that can reside on hardware. And so what SASE is, it includes the zero trust network access, and if you're going to do it yourself, it's complicated and expensive to do.
Can I ask you real quick, how many people understand zero trust? Yeah, can you give them a brief explanation of what zero trust is so they understand why VPNs
My next slide, we're going to compare VPN to zero trust in detail, and I think you're setting it up perfectly. But what we've done for View on the Secure Edge, which is the product, it's an affordable SOC 2 Type 2 ZTNA platform, and it's tailored specifically for OT, and it doesn't require rip or replace. And more importantly, what I'm telling you as a system integrator, you don't need to hire new staff to implement this. We've designed a product that if your controls technician knows how to do Niagara, they can easily implement this and provide this to your clients. So a little bit more to your point, what's the difference between ZTNA and VPN? So it's monitoring. So on the zero trust, it's really you're not trusted. Everybody comes in, you're not trusted. We're going to monitor everything that you're doing while you're connected and after you're connected. Typically on a VPN, they can see when you logged in. They don't necessarily where you went, potentially how long you were there, but they don't really monitor what you were doing. And this isn't our comparison. This comes from the Gartner and SASE. Risk-wise, so the ZTNA, it's designed to meet the modern needs and business demands. It's designed for remote work. It's designed for speed. It's designed for performance and security. VPN, it's pretty much all or nothing. Once you're in, you have access to everything that's behind the network. ZTNA on the security side, it's high-level cybersecurity, treats every user and device as a threat until proven otherwise. It limits lateral movement, so it only allows you into specific IP addresses, and then even more granular down to specific ports on those IP addresses. VPNs only creating encrypted tunnels between the networks and the authorized end users. But also, as IT is moved to the cloud, SASE, Zero Trust is all managed through the cloud as well. And it provides granular security, but then also allows you to update and manage across your entire portfolio of buildings or systems that are out there, whereas a VPN is more like an appliance-based, one-off. It's not typically centrally managed.
Great.
So, a little more about it, just the picture on, you'll see the term inode. So inode is a device. It's an appliance that we have that provides cybersecurity. It provides remote access. It also has a Docker engine and runs containers, so we can run containerized Niagara on it as well. On the other side, you'll see the VPN, which is just an example of, hey, you've converged your network. I've got my system integrator, my BMS provider. They might have installed TeamViewer. I have my access control person that also wants service. You know, they installed LogMeIn. Who knows what the elevator person put in, but you have all these different threat vectors coming into your building, and what you're doing as the owner is you want that remote access because it reduces your costs for service, but what you've done is you've created all these different holes and access points into your OT network. And if it's one VPN, you still have access, but sometimes there's lots of different ways into these buildings. And what we're doing is implementing Zero Trust. It's one device that's in between the internet and the building's OT network, and then it's once you come in and you're connected based on your credentials, it could say, okay, I'm Train, I installed my chiller. We all know that, hey, you guys did a backend integration to the chiller, but we all know if Train has their own tools, they can get a lot more information from the chiller that's on the backnet network. They might want to get into it. You can say, okay, Train, you can come in, you're going to go to 192.168.1.10 on port 80, and you're allowed to go in Monday through Friday from 5 p.m. till 6 p.m., and we're going to watch everything that you do.
So it kind of segments as you enter the OT network. Okay.
And then if you install a system on the construction side, who wants to get in remotely? Balancer wants to get in. Commissioning agent wants to get in. Maybe today you have remote access, you put a Cradle point in. You guys are all using the same username and password. Then your tech says, okay, Balancer buddy, here's the username and password. 6 months later, did anybody change the username and password or access to it? Does that technician still work for you? Maybe not. I guarantee you guys all have usernames and passwords for your remote access stuff shared in lots of places you're not aware of. This creates single sign-on, links in with your Microsoft, your Google single sign-on, multi-factor authentication. It's all linked to those users. They leave your company. But then more importantly, okay, Balancer, you can come in, but I'm going to let you in for 30 days, and after 30 days, your account's deleted from the system. So, you hear a lot that cyber's important, right? But nobody's telling you, I got a solution for you. I'm telling you, I got a solution for you. I can make your lives easy, and I can help you generate a new revenue stream. So, our system is built for system integrators like yourselves. And what we're saying, during construction, create a centralized security platform for all your projects. It's consistent, repeatable across your projects and all your offices. We provide some more support. You've got the remote access audit trail. But more importantly, you don't need to hire new talent to do this and implement it. And we can also host Niagara supervisors on our inode as well. So you can get rid of those Dell machines that you're installing during the construction process. So you can use it during construction, then you've got it available during the warranty, and what happens after construction and warranty, we all know what everybody tries to do. It's let's sell that service contract, let's help build that managed service business, more reoccurring revenue, but also you're keeping it consistent during service, and you're keeping it consistent with what you're doing on the construction side. And then there's a second option that comes up, and this is where end users start to learn what you're doing. So the big REITs at REC are buying our solution because now they want to manage and maintain it and use it for all of their OT side. And what we're providing to you is a path to use it as a managed service. And then if the ultimate end user wants to have the keys to the car, you become the reseller of it, and it's reoccurring revenue for you. And then there's a third option that we don't like, and you guys don't like when they say no to service contracts, but it's reality. Some of them will throw their hands up and say, no, thank you. You can say, we've used our best security, but just to remind you that, you know, the hardware that goes in place still does what it was doing, remains in standalone mode, but just like if you're not buying your software maintenance agreements from Tridium, you're not gonna get the updates for it. And so, Secure Edge, it's built for you. It's 3 tiers to it: cybersecurity, remote access. One thing I didn't touch on is cloud connectivity, cloud connection. So like Code Lab, so you guys saw them a bit. There's a secure way, easy way to connect to it, along with some intelligence at the edge.
So if I'm a systems integrator, Aaron, if I'm a systems integrator and I want to implement a tool like this just for my own satisfaction, because I'm more interested in making sure I mitigate my risk, how do they convey that to an owner who may not be as concerned with cybersecurity as the integrator is?
Yeah, it's an important part of it's really your brand, right? And, you know, are you just going to take any and every project that comes available to you, or are you going to be a little bit selective? And so we have, you know, one of the largest system integrators here in the U.S. They built a homegrown solution. They had to hire a couple people to manage it and maintain it. And they run into an issue where it's really hard to scale, but it's at a corporate level, they made the decision that we have to do this because we are protecting our corporation and our business, and we're communicating that to the end users. And we're telling them hey, if you're not going to do this and you still want us to provide services to you, here's a piece of paper that says you're signing off to say we're not going to be held liable for anything bad that happens to you and your business. And you know, having a strong stance like that is not just like, oh, by the way, I've got this cybersecurity thing for you. You might want it, but if not, it's not a big deal. It's very different than saying cybersecurity is important to us, Mr. Customer. If it's not important to you, why don't you just sign off that I'm not liable for it? And that shows how important it is to you as a business. And what you'll find is those building owners are probably going to think twice before they sign something to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be ultimately responsible for your product.
So this question is for either one of you guys. How can systems integrators kind of keep up to date with best practices when it comes to cybersecurity and some of the threats that are out there? Either one of you.
Man, I'd say you're here. This is a good spot. Follow REC on LinkedIn. Greg is always posting some really good stuff, the latest threats that are out there. I mean, Tridium's always talking about it. Realcomm, you know, like Jim was talking about, we've got a whole session around cybersecurity. You got to read. You got to read and you got to study. And I think Ed was the one that was saying, prep and read on this new technology.
Yeah, it's really the most important thing is to set a standard within your own company, right? That you're going to do this, you're going to learn it. And the good news is there's people coming out that may not be BAS technicians, but there's a lot of people that are very IT and very cybersecurity savvy. I mean, there's more and more universities now have, degrees in cybersecurity. So you have to look at that, but also look at the different resources. We try to do that a lot. We have a whole team of sales engineers that specialize in different pieces and parts. Like I said, if you want to know everything there is to know about certificates, you call James Johnson up, and we've had to invest in that as well. But again, third party, like I said, REC is a great place to go do that. So I think you just have to stay on top of that. And probably in your company, there needs to be somebody whose total role is going to be responsible for your cyber journey, right? Absolutely. Who is that going to be? It's going to be one of your good techs or one of your engineers or your IT person. Look at Mike Mitchell. He went from an IT person to an OT person to a cyber person, right? So that's the kind of journey you're going to have to take, because I do truly believe that if you're going to do business with certain customers, you're going to have that expertise with your company, or you're just not going to be allowed to respond to an RFP. And I do believe the good point you brought up, and particularly about VPNs, is people, you need to understand how to talk to people about the difference between a VPN and an outbound connection, right? Where you only need to use port 80 that he talked about. And then we've actually done that with Niagara as well, right? That's why we're using our Niagara remote, so that it's only outbound connections, super secure, going where people aren't logging into the customer site anymore. They're logging into somebody else's secure cloud, and you're given access there. So again, a lot of things are changing really fast, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to do that. And I do believe, like I said, with REC and Realcomm, there's going to have to be a little bit more in our organization. Maybe I think the industrials, and you may be able to give some color to that, are maybe a little bit ahead of us. Oil refineries and those sort of things as an industry. I don't think ASHRAE has covered it, right? I think we were all expecting ASHRAE to do it, and I don't think they're anywhere close to doing that. Aaron, do you?
Yeah, industrial is definitely well ahead on it, and there's other applications. So like we don't cover everything, but we also support with containers on it to support other modules that are available to you. And so we're highly focused on internet connection into your building, sending data to the cloud. But we're not solving for what's happening exactly in the building, but we have marketplace partners that you can run their applications on our device that are very built up specific to monitoring that localized network traffic as well. And it gets back to the cyber harmony theme. Is there's no single solution for it. It's a collaboration between all the key people that are involved. It's a collaboration from the manufacturers of the controllers to the IT people in the building to potential solutions providers to kind of link it all together. But then also it's done in an open way that as new technologies evolve, as new threats come in, right? You can't buy software today and expect it to be secure tomorrow. You have to continuously update and monitor, and it's only going to stop when people stop trying to be bad actors, which we all know is never going to happen if there's money to be made, right, as a bad actor.
So we're running out of time here. I know cybersecurity is one of those topics that's a little like, do I need to listen to this? Do I need to address this? Do I need to implement this into my business? But do you guys have any questions before we wrap this thing up? Any questions out there? See a lot of glazed eyes.
I don't have a question, but I got a comment.
Yeah, please.
I used to work at Johnson Controls.
Yep.
Public knowledge, we got hacked the last week of our fiscal year, this is not, right?
Yep.
But what I found interesting in listening to all those stories was just because you're not attacked doesn't mean you weren't breached.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a very good point.
So they don't have any idea how long they were in the system before they actually put the ransomware in place.
Yep. Right.
And with IP and patents and all that shit, they can siphon all that off there and leave, and you never know they were in there. Yep. So that was fascinating to learn about that.
Yeah.
And they had to go to the SEC and get delayed earnings reports and everything else, right? Because they couldn't run the financials.
And that's why the government is getting involved when it comes to reporting these incidents now. If you go, and I encourage all of you to go and follow REC, the Real Estate Cyber Consortium on LinkedIn. There's a lot of really, really good infographics that we're posting out there, and Aaron kind of spoke to it. The OT breach cycle, which you just talked about. There's an infographic that I posted that shows you exactly how an OT breach works, from step 1 to about step 15. How it gets in there, it sits there, it starts mimicking other technology within the OT network, and then just kind of moves its way through the network. And you guys can pick up a lot of information really quick by visiting these 2 websites, their cybersecurity areas, visiting smartbuildingsdesign.com and visiting REC, and looking at a lot of the information that's posted on Realcom. You guys can get up to speed extremely quick. Any other questions? Well, with that, I'd like to wrap it up. Thank you for coming. I'd like to thank my panelists, Aaron and Merwin. I appreciate you. And thank you guys for hanging in there for the last session.